A niche fragrance is simply any fragrance that comes from any company that solely or primarily produces fragrance products. Right? A niche fragrance is simply a more expensive perfume product that uses more expensive ingredients and materials. Right? Kind of. First of all, we need to define what this term niche means. What is a niche market? According to Shopify, a niche market is a segment of a larger market with a shared identity that makes it unique. According to Coursera, niche markets are highly specific segments of consumers who share certain characteristics and qualities with one another. In contrast to mass markets, which encompass all possible consumers, niche markets consist of much more narrow consumers who are smaller in number than mass markets, but who may be much more likely to purchase a specific product or service. Here are some rhetorical questions to consider when it comes to niche fragrance brands. Handmade versus mass-produced. Some niche brands and what we call indie brands have often been known for their small batch, sometimes handmade products. Is a niche fragrance brand who now or has always mass-produced their products still a niche brand with a niche audience? How about distribution and accessibility? Brands who mass-produce their products inherently do so because they have a wider distribution of those products. Does this negate their niche classification? Scent profile. What do the perfumes from a niche brand actually smell like? Do they smell like they are offering or at least intending to offer something different with a cohesive aesthetic? Or do they smell kind of common and familiar? Speaking of, let's talk about the intention behind new products. Simply, why? That's the question. Why? Why does the company continually make new products? Is it because they're seeking to contribute authentic and functional artistry to the market, to consumers, and subsequently being financially rewarded for adding value through their products? Or are they mostly introducing a new product because of the earning potential from as much of the market as they can capture? What about clone/dupe/inspired brands? Can these companies who only produce fragrance products most of the time be considered niche? I actually included what could be considered a clone fragrance in a recent video centered on niche fragrances. You can check out that video here. I included it in that video solely because of the intention and the execution behind that fragrance and behind that brand in general, which in my opinion sets itself way apart from what is known as the typical clone or dupe fragrance. Finally, a niche company becomes mainstream. When does this happen? And is it a bad thing for consumers? Now here's my bottom line. Per the true definition of niche in regards to fragrances, the term niche may not actually be what we say and believe it is, at least not anymore. That is, it does not only refer to one type of thing among all of the things. This leads me to what feels like a reasonable conclusion. It's reasonable to me. It may not be reasonable to you, but we can talk about that in the comments. And that conclusion is there are multiple niches in this community/industry. There seems to be something different for everyone. So it seems the real root issue here lies in semantics. The term niche is apparently too broad. We use it institutionally. It has become an easy defining umbrella term to use for fragrances opposite the side of the fence that mainstream occupies. In general, mainstream being designer brands. Why? Well, it's because we as humans love comprehensible categories. We love dichotomies. We love to say if it's not this, then it's that. Honestly, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. And there are many situations when it is necessary. Honestly, I can see things pretty black or white myself. That's something I'm working on. But we know that the cost of black versus white is that it leaves no room for the nuance of color in between. If we're going to try to be accurate, we have to say that niches can be applied to fragrances based on price range, scent profile, and availability. For example, inexpensive Middle Eastern clones/dupes is a niche. Original, traditional Middle Eastern fragrances is a niche. Unusual, non-mass appealing designer fragrances is a niche. High-end, boutique designer fragrances is a niche. Small batch, artisanal fragrances is a niche. expensive, high quality, mass produced, and mass appealing fragrances is a niche. And even using the term expensive versus inexpensive doesn't really do it justice, because those terms are highly relative. The severity of price is absolutely relative to your income, but these terms can easily be applied to, I would say, the majority average of those of you guys that I hear from in the comments when it comes to your respective financial situations. So once again, a niche, in theory, caters to the needs and interests of a specific segment of the market. Each one of the niches that I just listed does just that. Now, I have to mention this. For years, I've been saying this about the niche versus mainstream argument. Any fragrance brand has the capability to produce a mainstream product as well as a niche product. Yes, both. I don't believe that classifying a brand solely by the products it makes is very effective anymore these days, at least not 100% of the time. For instance, I used Parfum de Marly Perseus as an example of an expensive, high quality, mass produced, mass appealing fragrance. While Parfum de Marly has seemingly gone in this direction exclusively in modern times, as many of you already know, they have older offerings which absolutely do not fit this mold and do not cater to the mass market. And we're just talking about scent profile here. And unfortunately and consequently, these fragrances are no longer available. They've been discontinued. Now, is this the result of poor sales due to a change in market interest over time, an internal change of artistic direction, or perhaps both? Regardless, I do believe that a brand like Parfum de Marly does produce fragrances for a niche of the market, not niche fragrances, one specific niche out of several. The blanket term niche, which formerly separated them from the mainstream, no longer applies. In my opinion, that's totally fine. I'm not mad about it. Why? It's up to us to decide what companies we want our dollars to vote for. Simple as that. Now, out of the categories that I mentioned earlier, you may have realized that one important one was missing, and that is mass appealing, highly distributed designer fragrances. Because of their availability and their appeal, we know that these fragrances are essentially the essence of what we might call mainstream. But there's a little bit of a wrench in the machine. Many would argue that while distribution is just as wide as it was, accessibility may not be so due to the rise of prices of these fragrances over the past several years. I hear it from you guys all the time. I see your complaints in the comments. Some of these fragrances are becoming just as expensive, if not more so, than a lot of niche fragrances as we know it. So while they clearly still have mainstream intention behind them as far as their scent profiles and marketing, are these fragrances from designer brands becoming a niche of their own as far as the general public affording them? Well, I would argue no, they are not becoming a niche. The price of almost every product in the world has gone up over the past several years. Fragrances are a luxury item, unlike food, housing, and gasoline. So it is our need for those commodities that keeps us buying them over and over again, even as they become harder to afford. But believe it or not, the same has been true for the general fragrance market. Check out this 2024 IBIS World report. Perfume and fragrance stores have endured significant volatility in recent years. Many consumers consider fragrances discretionary purchases, tying sales to consumer confidence and disposable income fluctuations. Stores took a hit in 2020 and 2022 as the pandemic and jumping inflation pushed consumers to pull back on non-essential purchases, harming fragrance sales. However, a hike in sales in 2021 amid the economy reopening, pent-up demand, and consumers resuming in-person activities supported perfume sales. More recently, showing inflationary pressures have supported steady revenue growth, benefiting perfume stores. These trends have led to revenue growing at an estimated compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, of 1.6% to $7.7 billion through 2024, including a 2.4% gain in this year alone. So while the price of mainstream designer fragrances may be on the rise, people are still buying them, maybe even more than ever before. So what does this all mean? Do we need a reform of perfume market classification from the ground up? Does this tree need shaking? I mean, maybe. I think so. That's why I made this video. But will that actually happen? Well, It's actually already happening, but obviously we're not acknowledging it on a mass scale. Myself and fellow creators will continue to produce content with titles like 10 best niche fragrances for fill in the blank, because that is what viewership understands and will support. But I just wanted to make this video as a forum to discuss this. So let's discuss it. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.